Thank you for joining us today. Can you start by introducing yourself?
My name is Omar Ocampo, and I'm a researcher for the Institute for Policy Studies, and I mainly work on wealth inequality and racial inequality.
A new global wealth analysis by the Institute for Policy Studies, Oxfam, the Fight Inequality Alliance and Patriotic Millionaires has just come out called Taxing Extreme Wealth. Can you give us an overview of the main findings?
I could also talk about like the origins of the report as well. What we've done is that we wanted to look at individuals with at least $5 million or more in net worth and see how much of wealth is concentrated in their hands. So since the pandemic began, like there was a lot of focus like on billionaires, and of course it made sense because their wealth has skyrocketed. But what about the other ultra high net worth individuals who are not billionaires? And then we found that there are currently 3.6 million people in the world who have at least $5 million or more in net worth. We found that there's over 183,000 people with at least 50 million, and then there are over 2,000 billionaires. And adjusted for inflation, their wealth increased by 8.7 trillion. And this is in the context when where, according to the World Bank, there's been over 100 million people who have fallen into poverty since the pandemic began. Some of our overall findings, we focus on 44 countries. They account for like 90% of global GDP. And if we were to levy a wealth tax on them, which is like, just 2% on people who have 5 million, 3% on people who have, 50 million, and then 5% on people who have over a billion, we would be able to raise $2.5 trillion.
Can you elaborate on the wealth tax and the goals it is aiming to achieve?
This revenue could accomplish many things. Looking just at like some of the available statistics, it would be able to lift 2 billion people out of poverty. It would increase significantly the global health expenditures, and it would meet global demand for COVID vaccines. And I think this is like a really crucial point because vaccines are essential for preventing the development of new variants and ending the pandemic. But of course, every single country, can, utilize their resources as they see fit. But from a global perspective, this is how we view what could be done with these revenues.
Millionaires all over the world have come together and are requesting governments to tax them. But why is it still so difficult to impose this tax?
One of our partners with this report is the patriotic millionaires, and they've been arguing for the same thing, that they want to be taxed more. But I think in general, the very wealthy, the people who, I wouldn't even say they're like the top 1%. I would say like they're like the 0.05%. They're they dedicate a lot of their resources in avoiding taxation. They're able to pressure governments in order to give them some tax breaks. Sometimes they will argue that they want to do things independently or through philanthropy. So basically, there's a small group of individuals with a lot of wealth who deploy their resources in order to defend their wealth from taxation. Now, the reasons why they want to avoid taxation, because I think it's purely ideological. They think that they've earned this without any outside help, and they think that they would be able to manage the resources more efficiently than the state. I think that philanthropy is probably not the way to go, especially when you want to tackle structural problems. And also, since this is like a global phenomenon of tax avoidance, we need to have like a global approach as well. So a wealthy person can't just move their assets or leave the country or pressure their governments to not levy a tax.
Do you have any policy recommendations on how we can change the current system?
I think a wealth tax is just one tool out of many in order to lessen wealth inequality. I've always advocated that we need to come up with a system that doesn't allow for such extreme concentrations of wealth to happen in the first place. So we could advocate for a number of policies. So that can include some type of profit sharing in businesses, or there could be like some more democracy at work. We could have some worker ownership, worker cooperatives. We can strengthen the labor movement, have, you know, increase in, of workers who are part of labor or trade unions. And, I think, the message is that, we all benefit, from deepening democracy and, recognizing the dignity of work and the value that workers bring to the corporations. And it's having the state to be more responsive to the needs of mass voters and not just a wealthy elite and wealthy donors. So by tackling and eliminating this inequality, we are also generating more opportunity for people and assuring that the abundance and the wealth that is produced is shared.
Let's take Jeff Bezos as an example of one of the extremely wealthy people whose wealth has increased exorbitantly during the pandemic. Some will probably argue that he earned his wealth through his innovative ideas. He also spends a lot on charity. How would society be better off without such billionaires?
I would argue that Bezos didn't become a success by himself. There's also a number of essential workers, people who work at his warehouses. There's engineers. There's a plethora of people who have contributed to the success and the wealth of Jeff Bezos. I think when right before he went to the space, he thanked every single Amazon worker for contributing to the his ability to go to space. But that just shows that they're the ones who are also producing the value, but they're not sharing in the wealth. But that's because of the structure of ownership that exists in Amazon. So now, Amazon's workforce, I would say, is essential for the productivity of the business and the profitability of the company, and they should be rewarded for their work. Now, whether billionaires should exist, this is very it became a popular thing to talk about in the last few years. I would argue that if everyone's necessities are met, that we guarantee housing for all, if there's universal health care, and we have people that are not living below the poverty line, then I absolutely have no problem with billionaires existing. But until that is met, then I have no problem with aggressively taxing billionaires in order to ensure that we all have basic security and our necessities met.
Let's end the interview with a solutions-oriented approach. How can we create a society which doesn't create billionaires?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think that strengthening labor, and ensuring that workers are paid according to their productivity and not necessarily what is decided by the market, because the market can always can undervalue the wages of a worker. So basically, my biggest thing is always to have more democracy. So if we could have more democracy in the workplace, then where workers can have a say in the decision making, and also to have input in how the profits that they produce is distributed within the company. I think that would be one of the ways that we can ensure that wealth is not concentrated in the first place, or at least at that level.
Do you also have advice on what our viewers can do to contribute to a more equitable society?
Yeah, I think that it'd be important to maintain for individuals to maintain like an internationalist perspective, and also support progressive movements, not only where they are, where they can join, let's say, a grassroots movement, an organization, or even maybe try to unionize, but They can do that locally, and on an international level, they can support progressive movements across the globe, and then try to establish horizontal links. Because the main goal is to unite people and have a strong, I would say, progressive movement. Because we can't do this individually. It has to be a movement. The system that produces this wealth inequality, it's a global system. It's a hegemonic system, and so we have to have a counter hegemonic mind frame as well.